Ahead tonight, how the latest human trafficking report ranks the Bahamas.
Police charge a teen with the rape of a pastor's wife.
And decades of reflections as ZNS staffers are honored at Government House. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Kendino Knowles. As always, it's good to have you with us.
Topping the news tonight, the U.S. State Department released its 2013 Trafficking in Persons report for the Bahamas, signaling a turnaround in how these victims are handled here in the country.
Julian Ferguson tells us that the report shows the Bahamas has improved its ranking and is making significant efforts to bring the country in total compliance with international standards.
Acting Chief of Missions for the Bahamas U.S. Embassy, Alex Strogoloff, says this is a red-letter day for the Bahamas, improving its global ranking to Tier 2 in the Trafficking in Person report issued by the U.S. State Department.
Particularly remarkable this year was that there was some victims saved who were involved in sex slavery, and the Bahamas did a phenomenal job in, first of all, identifying them as victims. Secondly, protecting them, taking them away from the traffickers.
The Bahamas government says it supports the decision by the U.S. government and has already allocated $100,000 in this year's budget, among other things, to remain in compliance. The report recommended that the Bahamas treat those involved in human smuggling as victims of crimes and not criminals.
Why do we have to spend all this money putting these people up and so forth and so on? But the truth of the matter is the common humanity, the global sensitivity to these issues, it's a form of slavery. And once you begin to think of it like that, you realize how important it is to provide protection for such persons.
The report also spoke to foreigners in the Bahamas participating in illegal acts such as prostitution and exotic dancing, and even underage children participating in sexual acts. But according to Minister of Foreign Affairs Fred Mitchell, as a tourist destination, those type of reports are expected.
There's no evidence of child prostitution in this country.
We have openly said, if you have evidence that it is happening, please let us know.
Strogoloff says that while the Bahamas has raised its awareness on the issues and are making significant strides, there's still more work to be done.
We would expect and hope to see ongoing investigations, ongoing arrests, ongoing protection of victims. Again, it's the institutions that count.
Government officials are satisfied that the Bahamas is now taking all of the necessary measures to ensure that the Bahamas remains in compliance. Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Well, in order to remain compliant with the U.S. Traffic Victims Protection Act, Minister Mitchell says regular checks of work sites, including BAMAR, are being carried out. He says there have been individual complaints that employers were holding personal documents of employees.
People were holding their passports who were workers from outside the country, and their passports were being held by their employers. And that's a point that needs to be made, is that you shouldn't be, if you are an employer, you should not be holding your employee's passport if they are non-national. That is not permitted, because the person should be free to go, to leave, and to come.
Well, in the last 3 years, CIBC First Caribbean Bank has become one of the largest regional financiers. That being the case, the bank is holding a conference under the theme Public-Private Partnership in Infrastructure Development and Financing. The bank is hosting that conference at the Atlantis Resort. Over 150 Caribbean leaders, government and public-private sector officials are attending that conference. Prime Minister Perry Christie addressed the lunchtime session today, noting public-private partnerships offer significant benefits.
Going forward, the government of the Bahamas is looking to expand the range of such partnership arrangements in which it is involved as a means of efficiently and effectively providing the public infrastructure required for our development needs across the breadth of the nation. Beyond expanding our current roster of arrangements in the areas of ports and airports, we will examine possibilities for the construction and leasing of public building infrastructure and office complexes. As well, we would be open to possible partnerships in the areas of health, schools, water production and distribution, as well as electricity generation and distribution. So far, the National Insurance Board, our Social Security, has been the most active investor in public facilities that are leased back to the government on a long-term basis. However, it is clear that business opportunities can be formulated in these areas for investors, thereby removing ourselves from cash flow constraints of the National Insurance Board.
An 18-year-old man was arraigned in the magistrate's court this afternoon in connection with the rape and robbery of a pastor's wife. Thorne Cooper appeared before Chief Magistrate Roger Gomez, accused of the rape and robbery of the 51-year-old woman. The alleged crime was committed June 15th. The accused was not required to enter a plea to any of the charges. A preliminary inquiry will not take place, but instead the matter will be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court for trial. Cooper will be served on September 2nd with documents for the voluntary bill of indictment. He has been remanded to prison to await trial.
In our first look at weather, a ridge of high pressure is creating brisk winds and choppy seas throughout the 700 islands. But outside of our studios just now, we have just a few clouds, temperature 85 degrees, your relative humidity 66%, winds out of the east-northeast at 10 knots, your barometric pressure 1,000, and 18.0 millibars, that's 30.06 inches, and it is steady. But stay tuned, temperatures around the Family Violence, travel and boating forecast is still to come.
Minister of State for National Security, the Honorable Keith Bell, told the Senate during the budget debate that the ministry has been monitoring several areas, including downtown Nassau, to implement the national CCTV project.
Minister Bell also confirmed that the project is expected to be fully operational next month and that a major project to provide CCTV for police stations is underway.
We're moving very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, Madam President, in the police station, there's an article in the paper which indicate that a judge wants to see cameras in the police station. My minister has already indicated that he has directed the commissioner to ensure that cameras are installed in the police stations. So that work is well in progress.
Now, Bell calls the increase in the budget for manpower and resources for the Royal Bahamas Police Force the single largest investment in the police force's history, amounting to more than $200 million.
Budgetary requirements for the Royal Bahamas Police Force for 2013-2014 have been made available for an increase in manpower complement, base development projects, patrol vessels, dry docking, and refit and increased training for its personnel. Madam President, as we would have announced in our midterm budget, this government has undertaken to increase the fleet of the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
Vice President of the Senate, Joseph Curry, says, unfortunately, the Progressive Liberal Party has been in its current position before. Back in 2002, he says, the PLP government had to rescue the country out of economic despair and a downward spiral. Now, like then, he says, the Christie-led government is prepared to put the country back on a fiscal track.
It is a strategy which controls public expenditure, consolidates spending to realize savings, while increasing revenue through creative and new measures. It is a strategy which stimulates the economy, attracts foreign direct investment, while expanding domestic investment to create sustainable jobs. Jobs for Bahamians, while broadening the economic base. We cannot continue to spend and borrow. At some point, we must put the brakes on and halt the hemorrhaging in our public finance. This budget does just that.
Government Senator, the Honorable Gary Soria, in his contribution, endorsed the budget as a prudent one.
And the out-of-control spending, unlike the former administration. We must enforce fiscal discipline, which will bring order and stability to our governance once again. We must prioritize our needs and delay our wants until stability has been restored to our Bahama land. In trimming this budget, we must all understand we don't have an endless supply of money.
Senator the Honorable Julian Russell says that Grand Bahama's economy will get an economic boost and more jobs for residents of the island in the 2013-2014 budget. Senator Russell told Grand Bahamians they have every reason to be confident about upcoming developments for their island.
I want to assure the people of Grand Bahama that this government is committed in its efforts to restoring the economy of Grand Bahama by introducing new investment opportunities to the island, which will provide new sustainable job opportunities and which will, by extension, rejuvenate the economic engine of this island.
Leader of opposition business in the Senate, the Honorable Desmond Bannister, says that while the government continues to aggressively tackle crime, it must also take a serious look at the crippling impact it has on families.
Ultimately, the fear of crime in our country, and unfortunately, I say respectfully, at this stage, is at an unprecedented level. Bahamians are being violently accosted throughout the country. We all fear for our safety, and we fear for the safety of family members.
Government Senator Frank Smith says Bahamians will feel the impact of the country's budget in the near future. Senator Smith said that the budget is practical and forward-looking.
As we embrace this budget that demonstrates that there is both head and heart resident in our Prime Minister. This budget will augur well for the overall strength of the economy, strengthening of the economy, for which there has been many positive signs. And it is obvious that this economy is rebounding.
Well, still to come in the Bahamas tonight, the stories from former ZNS employees.
And the U.S. Embassy shows its charitable side. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
As the country prepares to celebrate 40 years of independence, I'm so proud to be a Bahamian because no other country under the sun offers you such diverse cultural experiences. If you're from my hometown of Grand Bahama, you know all about the ease of doing business. Or if you're in Inagua, you're frolicking with the flamingos, or even up in the Abacos doing a little bit of sailing. Then you're down in Andros catching some crab, or even swimming with the pigs in Exuma. All of these things marks the manner of our bearing, and I'm so proud to be a Bahamian. So from my family to yours, happy 40th birthday, Bahamas.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Chef.